we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's digital roundtable titled Building a Workforce with Purpose, Loyalty, and Pride. I hope everyone finds it insightful, educational, informative. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and happy to kick it off. And I'm going to pass it on over to Michael Levy right now.
Thanks, Jim. Hello, everybody in wherever you're calling in from, either outside the United States or here in the US, sending prayers and best wishes to each of you. Hopefully, all of you have gotten through the challenging times. We've all been in that boat together. And as I remind myself and children, in history, there is always a beginning, middle, and end to every event. And I'm hopeful and say a little prayer that we're really going to come to the end of it, and that's not too far, into the future. So thanks for taking a little bit of time today. I am an Australian accent and a proud American living in Dallas, Texas for the last 20 years. The Dallas thing was rather unplanned coming from Sydney, Australia, but that's where I find myself, and I'm proud to be a Texan as well. For any other Texans that are on that telephone call. Company, very briefly, Online Rewards is a technology service provider, and the technology and the service that we provide our customers is to build reward platforms. And some of those reward platforms are associated with traditional customer programs or dealer incentive programs. But over the course of the almost 18 years now, significant number of employers would contact us either from HR or from comp benefits asking us to build programs for their employee facing, which I thought was an interesting idea. And we said, sure, we can build those programs for you. And the programs evidently became about more than just the points. And it was an interesting observation. It was one of our big retail clients, Macy's, who had a significant budget and a significant program in place around the distribution of rewards for their employees. And they had some budget cuts. Again, this was quite some time ago. And I was concerned that that would have a significant and negative impact on the program's outcome, results, and value meaning to the population. But interestingly, that didn't actually happen. And what we noticed and observed was the value and importance of the recognition was potentially more valuable. I won't make a comment that it has a greater value than a monetary, but appreciation has a significant value and an opportunity to capitalize on the need for people to be validated or known or seen or appreciated can be as powerful as a monetary award, i.e. comp strategies, etc. In fact, it got to the point where I started asking the question, we have two employees and we have them in all our companies, Jim and John, right? Jim likes green and John likes red just for the sake of simplicity. They're the same age, they went to the same college, they have the same training, they have the same job title, they have the same comp package. And John looks like this in terms of his contributions, and Jim looks like this to his contributions. And the question we ask ourselves as senior HR people in operation is, what's the difference? We know the outcomes are totally different. We work with those people in our small teams, and we know them across the organization. What is different about these two? They were trained the same, they came from the same backgrounds, they're the same age, they're the same pay rates, but their performance and outcomes totally different. And of course, we're all different. We all know that ourselves intimately. But we believe, we theorize, we strategize, and we've observed in 20 years that actually this discretion and the ability to, the desire to put out that discretionary effort is a choice that we make each day. We have the decision to make whether we want to give the best effort when we come to work or we want to do the minimum to avoid being fired. And that delta is huge. It is far, far greater than the 3% delta that we treat in the comp strategies at the end of the year for the bonus plan. Top guy gets 3, the one guy gets 1. This delta could be a 25% performance differentiator. So it was somewhat something we'd observed, something that we saw in the data. And throughout the history, I met some interesting people that then had some points to add to that. Right? to this concept of if you make people proud of their work and proud of the company, you might be able to tap into that discretionary effort. So I met some really interesting people along the way. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to be able to get that expertise and their knowledge and their perspectives and share that in a format? And so that's what we're doing today. We'll have a series of these webinars over the course of the next year or two. But these are some of the smartest folks that I've had the pleasure to work with. I'm lucky and proud enough to be able to say, you know, Christi's a client of ours, and of the many, many clients that we do have, she's no doubt one of the most dynamic, committed, resourceful, sophisticated, and creative of all of them. And she has a pretty significant resume behind her. So Christi's going to share some of her knowledge, perspectives, and experience. And I've also had the opportunity and pleasure to know Bob both personally and to be able to work and collaborate with him. Bob and Christi work together in deployment of some programs that they're going to talk about during this presentation. But Bob predates my interest in the recognition rewards business, has actually been the sort of guru of thank you and various other appropriate titles. But Bob was way ahead of his time when you especially consider where we are today and the acknowledgement that recognition is important. 25 years ago, Bob was already writing papers and books espousing the importance and the significance of good recognition and appreciation of employees in order to get business outcomes, in order to get that discretionary. So without further ado, Bob, I'd like to pass it across to you. Remember to click on the screen to take control, and you can use your arrow keys. And I hope you will all enjoy their time together today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and good to see you again, Christi. And I just want to share a few thoughts here in a broader context. Here we go. Significance of recognition. And in a nutshell, I spent 25 years on this topic, and in his recent Harvard Business Review article validated one of many, many validations that recognition given for high performance is the #1 driver of employee engagement today. So as you said, Michael, it's as important as compensation, and often I find it's even more important to people that, you know, everyone gets paid, not everyone feels recognized. And after a while, if you've not recognized, that wears at you, and then at some point the pay doesn't matter if you're not valued for the work you're done by those you work for and you work with. So in the short term, you could be sometimes, like, you know, in the military they have combat pay. You're paid well for crisis situations. So in the short term, the money might you can say, well, that's okay because it's a tough job. But in the long term, everyone needs validation, and we need that from our manager. We need it from our coworkers, from really everyone in our life, and and it can lead. Aon has found that could impact engagement up to 40%. So it's a huge dimension, and the great thing about it is that at the heart of it's a very simple action of thanking people for doing a good job. There's a lot of variations on that, but the foundation for it all is a simple behavior, and that so this really has an infinite return if you take it seriously and get your leaders to do it. So in one study I love that Merritt's did, they tried to quantify the value of recognition, a recognition culture where it's the norm in how we do things around here, and they were able to identify that people in a culture like that report that they're 5 times more likely to feel valued than if they're not in a culture like that. They're 6 times more likely to endorse the company as a great place to work. They're 7 times more likely to stay with the company long term, even for their career, which is just is a price of admission right there. If you do this well, it's the #1 variable that can help keep people in your company and contributing, and 11 times more likely to feel completely committed to their job, to the manager, to the company mission. Those are some pretty big impacts from a behavior that at the heart of it doesn't cost a dime. So my goal has been to scream from the mountaintops the power of this, and I initially was attracted to it because with as much power as this has, I didn't see where it was done that well or that often in the corporations I worked for, and that's what got me interested in doing a deeper dive and helping organizations make this a reality for their employees every day. And on that journey, I had the great pleasure to meet with Christi, and as we've worked in Qualcomm and getting the word out, this is some of the information that we've focused on in the circle there in the center. In talking to managers, we encourage them to start with taking personal interest in their employees. So just getting to know them, which can be the first day of work, taking someone out for coffee or lunch, and of all the places you could have worked, what was it about working here that really attracted you? What do you hope to get out of this job? Who do you hope to meet? What do you hope to learn? Where do you hope to be in 5 years from now? What do you do when you're not at work? The more you know about someone, the more fodder you have to motivate them, and not to manipulate them, not to trick them to working harder, but actually to align their personal aspirations with the company objectives, which is my definition of engagement, that alignment between those two. Acknowledging, rewarding high performance, not just showing up for work, and we do this well. It ties into very smoothly into career development, mentoring and coaching, visibility beyond your boss, and then of course celebrations when milestones are met in the group, in the company, individually as well. So the reinforcing desired behavior and results is what we're talking about. The results are the job being done. The behavior can be the corporate values that then decide will most drive our mission. And you can do this in many forms. I couldn't have written a book initially called 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees if it was just one thing. And that's the power, is getting people to see that recognition's all around you every day. It could be formal in a formal letter, or it could be informal in the hallway. They both have merit. It could be public or private, and people tend to have, I find, a bias one way or the other. If you're an introvert, you typically like more private, personal recognition. If you're an extrovert, more public. And some people want give both to me, So so you can find out what people's preferences are, and then try to meet them at as much as possible. And then recognition can be tangible or intangible. The tangible part tends to be the financial elements of pay and things that you can buy with money. It could be a gift card or merchant points for merchandise. But I find it's delightful that in my research, the most powerful forms of recognition are intangible, don't have any cost. As I mentioned, starting with a simple thank you, but also asking people their opinion, asking them for their ideas for how we can improve things around here, save money, streamline processes, involving them in a decision, especially one that affects them in their job, two-way communication. And if they make a mistake, you can be the smartest person in the room and correct them and embarrass them in front of their peers, or you can take a breath and say, I wouldn't have done it the same way, but what'd you learn from that? And have even a mistake be a positive experience. And so all those types of things that good managers do don't require money. They do require a little thought, looking for the opportunity, acting on when you see it. That's the foundation for then, if you move forward with other tools and other strategies, you can build a powerful culture of recognition and derive some of the results that I indicated are there for you. And with that, in our journey in working with Qualcomm, Christi has carried the flag as the head of employee engagement at Qualcomm, and it's been a delight. Christi, maybe you can talk about how the impact this has had so far. We're still in the middle of it, but the impact it's had so far there at Qualcomm.
Thanks, Bob. And I will just say that this has been a dream team. The ability to transform the culture of recognition at Qualcomm with a world-renowned expert in Dr. Bob, and a nimble and innovative and responsive vendor partner like Online Rewards and Michael, has just been a fantastic way to really we're trying to turn the super tanker around, right? We're trying to talk to leadership about how important this recognition practice and muscle is, especially as we have this whole millennial workforce coming on board at Qualcomm. And also we launched this new tool in the middle of COVID. And so to have a virtual tool for all of our international offices has been so key. And we're just short of 90 days with our launch, and so excited eventually to share out more information about that. But it's been really key to look at the data at Qualcomm and see, before we even started this journey, what the data had told us. And we saw that there was a direct correlation. We saw that people who receive daily or weekly recognition were really likely to stick with the company and want to be there. And then as that decreased, if people were only getting recognition in that annual review process, that they were much less likely to see themselves at the company. And so that's our starting point. That's where we began the journey, talking to leaders, is making the business case for this is not a nice to have, this is not a soft skill, this is really a business driver for attracting the millennials, keeping them, like Michael said, having that discretionary effort, but also making sure we don't lose them along the way. So telling that story, rolling out a tool, and then having Bob as a wraparound to really couch this in data and best practices and research has been key to our journey. So where we're going at Qualcomm, we have an incredible dynamic workplace. We do amazing cutting edge work. We're bringing 5G to the world. But what we want to do is really weave recognition into our fiber. And we're a highly technical, very engineer-based workforce. And so this has been a journey in terms of making sure that consistent recognition and calling out people's good work and catching them doing something good and sharing that in a very public, high-tech way, which is great for us. We wanted our recognition program to look like our culture. We wanted our recognition program to feel Qualcomm and to feel high tech and high touch, and we call it thank you, because at Qualcomm everything we do seems to have a Q inserted somewhere, and so that worked out for us very well. So we've always done well at celebrations. We've always had a strong work culture, but we haven't ever really focused on this recognition piece and this recognition muscle and how that affects pride in the work that individuals do, pride in the work that your team does, and pride in the work that the company does, and really tying that together in a strategic way. So in our vision, we needed a lot of pieces, right? We needed leaders to model this behavior. So Dr. Bob and I, and Michael, with Michael's help, went to the leaders early on, a lot of work with the leaders getting them on board. We need to make sure that our employees had a way to recognize their peers. Before, we were still we're a very innovative company, but we were still in kind of a paper certificate-based recognition program that had worn out its time. We needed education and awareness, bringing in Dr. Bob to do seminars and talks and small groups to really talk about not only the thank you tool and how that could move us forward in recognition, but the whole body of things that we can do as managers and leaders. And Dr. Bob touched on some of those. We needed to make sure that this consistent thank you and recognition wove into our larger strategy of reviews on an annual basis. And then we needed to make it fun and new, and we really needed a refresh. And that's how we launched the tool Thank You and started to acknowledge and appreciate people on that very consistent basis. So I just wanted to run through a few key observations, and I would love Dr. Bob to weigh in here because he's been with me on this journey. But some key observations about how we undertook this big process of changing the culture of recognition that we're still in the process of. The first thing was we had to start with the data. We have a very robust analytics team, and we wanted to make sure we had good baselines, and it wasn't just a gut feeling, but it was based on business and based on metrics. And so we started with the data. We did a baseline survey of everyone in the company and asked about recognition in particular and how often people feel like they receive meaningful recognition. And then Dr. Bob and I took that to the leaders, took that to the employees, and really talked about that as a practice.
And that included focus groups, which in my experience with companies, I don't think I've really worked with a company yet that starts with everyone starts saying, I know what our employees want. And I go, well, you know, and usually you don't. You think you do, and it tends to be the things that you assume that there must be pay and benefits and, you know, vacation time and well, then it'll be easy to ask them to confirm that. But if you ask them, you'll find it's always not that. It tends to be the more intangible things I mentioned, the personal thank you, the visibility, the chance to work on an exciting assignment, especially with technical workers. They want to be challenged in their work and having a choice of assignments and being on the hot project, the hot new thing is very important. So being aware of that can help you make a better utilization of that and tying it to individual motivation.
Thanks, Bob. We also wanted to see what's everyone else doing, right? Where are we in this universe? And so we looked, and it's really being driven by our other high-tech partners. I mean, people are really embracing this social media type strategy. It's driven by millennials. They're interested in Giphies and TikToks and immediate recognition. And so we had to look at what the other players were doing, who the best-in-class vendors were. That's how we got in touch with this group through Dr. Bob and Michael. So we looked at that, and that helped us frame it for our leaders as well. We needed to make sure that we weren't just rolling out a communication plan. We had people who had been with Qualcomm for many years. This was a big change from a paper certificate to an online fun tool. And so we did a lot with our change management team of building stakeholders and moving people across the line and doing little tests. And it was a very robust change management plan. And then involvement. Good.
I was going to just add to the basic part of that was that for most most senior leaders, they evaluate on their own terms and they go, well, this isn't rewarding to me. I think it's silly to use TikTok, and that should be a waste. That's a waste of time here at work. And it's not so important what you think. It's important what the people you're trying to motivate think. And if it's fun and exciting to them and it helps them get their work done more easily, don't block that. Be a part of it. Get on board. And we found that getting them to see the different perspective that once they saw that and tried it and often got feedback from employees, then they were on board and they helped to carry the flag.
Yeah, to build on that, Dr. Bob, the senior leaders, there was no bigger delta than between our focus groups with employees and our senior leaders response. The senior leaders said, oh, that's silly, they don't need it, the work is good, the pay is good. And the frontline employees said, if only people saw what I did. I feel really good about the work I do. I work hard all weekend, and I just want someone to see me. And so Dr. Bob and I have spent a lot of time weaving the story between the actual employees and the leaders. And one of the things that really helped is we told the leaders, well, what would your kids think, right? Because a lot of those leaders have been in seat a while, and they have kids who are coming up into the workforce. So we employed a lot of strategies to get leaders involved, and we were relentless in getting in front of them and in lots of different formats. So that has been critical to getting this launched. We also have champions. We found all of the people across the organization were 35,000. So we found 500 people that were critical users of the previous recognition program. We roped in all the executive assistants, those people that have the ear of the leaders. We roped in people who are part of our affinity groups and networks to say, hey, help us promote thank you, help us promote recognition. And so we have people on the ground in all of our different offices. Communication
and some expectations of them too, that for their area they would be a champion of the topic. They would remind people. They would get us on the agenda of the meetings so it could be updated. They would give us feedback as to what things weren't working. So just an active army of people spread out throughout the organization. And it wasn't just employees too. It was we took volunteers, but often we had managers volunteer and even some VPs volunteer to say, I want to be an ambassador to help reinforce this topic with my people. And so that made it a lot easier as well.
Yeah, Dr. Bob showed me that there's people that do this really well, but they may not even realize how well they do this. So we really focused in on taking the energy from those people. It's been more art than science in that way of getting the right people to help us promote this program.
Like one of the cool things we did, it was we did a panel of VPs that we knew were good at this, to have them talk about why they do it and what they do. And we videoed that, and we also invited 300 VPs to come and listen to that. So whether they heard it live or they heard it in a tape later on, and we since then we've had groups around the world that will view that, and then will talk to us about the questions they have. And it's a step-by-step integration. And I one of the learnings for me on this is that I thought, well, we'll just announce it and everyone will get on board, and change doesn't happen like that. It's very incremental, and you have some people that are already doing it, and you want to give them more tools. You got other people that say they're never going to do it, and in between you got a lot of people that are lurking to see what happens to the first people, to see if this really has traction, to see if it has any advantage to my people. And so you have to keep inviting people to the party, and as you do, eventually you cross a critical mass where it becomes what we do around here, and that's the goal.
Thanks, Dr. Bob. And then feedback and measurement, we're in that process right now where we're looking at, like Dr. Bob said, getting feedback from people. It's a feedback-rich environment, as you can imagine, with engineers. And we're measuring, right? We're measuring from the baseline of where we were with the old tool, where we are with the new tool, but also where we are with all of the new practices and trainings and communications on this issue.
So one of the cool things on that, there's just a lot of specific insights along the way. We were just touching on a few of them, but with the mobile application, it was a lot easier for people to do, especially executives were more easily able to get on in between meetings, and they did, and they would like recognitions they've seen. But we found that that simple element of allowing more visibility of recognition that's done. So when we set things up, we initially had the choice to, when someone was recognized, would that recognition go to anyone else? And we thought, well, we can have it go to their manager. And then we thought, well, that's going to overwhelm managers. They're going to be getting so much, and so we didn't do that. But wouldn't you know, managers end up saying, we want to hear. When one of my people has been recognized, I want to hear what they're recognized for. That's important information. So we now have it automatically. If someone's recognized, a copy of that automatically goes to their leader for greater visibility. And in my mind, when they get to their performance review, wouldn't it be great if they could start by printing out all the recognitions they received over the last year, the things they've done well, instead of one thing they did poorly 2 weeks ago, which tends to be the bias in a lot of performance reviews. So a lot of great things to come, a lot of great progress we're making along the way.
Yeah, it's been a very exciting journey, and having this team has been key to moving such a large company and a global company from one system to the other, and from one practice or lack of practice to getting this as to be part of our daily practice. So it's been great. I think we're moving back to you, Michael, on the next piece.
Yeah, so Bob and Christi, thanks for sharing that today, and I'm putting it into context so everybody's seeing the pieces of the puzzle. You've got a client with a innovative, motivated, inspired business leader seeing a weakness in an existing practice in the organization, and a very large organization, high tech but conservative. You have a expert in the space of people and change management and history, and an ability to vocalize the importance of it and support the business champion in Bob. And you've got a technology vendor coming in behind saying, let's make this really interesting and exciting to support these processes, not to get ahead of it, but to support those in a transparent manner that matches and meets the needs of a very high level of standard, which is not one recognition platform or another, because we've seen them all and many of them are whatever. No, it's TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, because every single person on this call and every single employee in the companies who work for the people, who are related to the people on the call, will either have been during this call checking out their social media, whatever their favorite preference is, or as soon as there's a break, they're going to do it. And we're like, companies can have a version of that, right? And it must meet their technical need. But when you bring those things together, the committed business champion with a vision and motivation and expertise on how to do it and to support the change management ongoing, not just put a program in place and then good luck, I'll see you later, but to nurture it, because it's not about the program. It's actually about the cultural transformation that you're trying to do to make a better culture, because the better culture ROI trumps the 3% pay increase by X factor, whatever you decide to sort of throw at that. It's much more powerful. And then you need to have a technology platform that disappears, that is just part of the experiences that employees are looking for at the quality and level they do. And if you do that, then you can get great outcomes. So I thought I'd ask, Bob and Christi from their perspectives, because Bob's, seen this journey many times, and Christi, who's living and breathing it. What do you think about the relationship between recognition and that feedback loops that we're creating with engagement and pride being my own work and proud in my own work individually and proud in the company that I work for? So Christi, why don't you take the lead on that and share some perspective on what you've experienced at Qualcomm?
Sure, we talk a lot about things being algorithmic, right? Everyone's looking for the right algorithm. So as we talk about how to do recognition, we've taken Dr. Bob's work on, the specific, timely, how does it connect to the organization? And so when we see managers doing this, when they recognize someone on the tool and connect what that individual employee is doing with what the larger organization mission is, what the company values are, that's the magic, right, to building that pride and purpose into the employees' day-to-day work. And we found that that's where we had so much appetite for and so much need for, is to really, especially for those frontline employees, people who've been there for 10 years, they know how they fit into the organization, but really starting to build those layers of pride by pointing out very visibly, here, I see you doing this, you just did it, here's how what you're doing connects to what we're trying to deliver as a company.
Yes, and as I initially indicated, we've got overwhelming proof of the power of recognition, probably 400 studies that say you get what you reward, what you recognize, what you inspect, you'll get more of, and that's the leading dimension that drives engagement, probably 56% by one study I remember citing. So the element of pride is a slightly new dimension, Michael, and I think that there's individual elements of that and organizational elements. And as Christi was just saying, for people that have been with the organization a while or are in management, there's more of a tie to the mission of the organization. It comes naturally that as they grow and they've got more responsibility, that's more part of what they do. For people that are newer to the organization or younger, they don't, that tie is not that strong, and so the journey is to make that connection stronger, and that journey starts at a very specific individual level of recognizing what they did and going into their world and saying, a leader saying, what you're doing is important work, and here's the impact on our department, and here's how it ties to our overall mission. And so that's you're making that one-on-one link to really broaden their perspective, to eventually have it tied to the organizational mission. And it would be great to if that happened automatically, but it's usually people, when they start their career, they're very myopic. They got their needs, and they're trying to see how they fit in. And so we've got to wrap around them and their world, and then show them the link on how that so again, in that conversation when you have with a new employee, to make the observation that it all starts with doing a good job. That's job one, but pay attention, because there's a lot of career paths you can have this organization, and part of my job is to help you align with that and to know where you want to be and to help you get there, not to guarantee you that you'll get a promotion, but to to certainly guarantee you'll be ready for the job that you want if you do a good job and we work on it together. That's part of my job, is to set you up to win going forward. So that kind of wraps those individual and organizational elements together in the focal point between the leader and their direct report.
And also, I would think with the tool that having the leaders a couple levels up seeing the work has been critical as well. So while the manager is calling out the behavior, the tool is facilitating the VP or the senior director also seeing that work. And that also engenders pride in the day-to-day, that someone is seeing what I'm doing and someone knows my name and they know how I'm contributing to the company's success.
And Bob directed me to this interesting statement, and I think it so beautifully captures this question of the connection between recognition to the engagement and this discretionary effort level, which is, you know, I'm engaged, I'm giving my extra effort. And it was that this goddess of a woman, Oprah Winfrey, speaking to the Harvard population, and you can see this on YouTube. And granted, it's a 30-minute presentation, and this was a little micro element from it, but it was a great point. And she goes, you say it, Bob, you showed it to me, but I loved it so much. You tell everybody what it was.
Well, she just said in her experience, everyone is looking for validation, whether they're president of the United States or a mass murderer that she interviewed. That at the end of the interview, they all say, "How'd I do?" And they all want that affirmation from outside. And no matter how much confidence, how much success they've had in their life, they're looking for that. So the recognition is not a frivolous thing. It's a fundamental thing that we all as humans are striving to attain.
So now juxtapose that, the need for validation, to Christi's experience with the COO and his posting and his perspective, having posted it. Share that, you know, interesting story to see the turnaround of leadership of like, hang on, it also plays back to me.
Yeah, we're our one of our leaders, he loves Twitter and he loves social media, and his signature move is a fist bump. So he'll often talk about giving someone a fist bump, or he'll put a fist bump icon. So we did a short little video of him giving a fist bump and sent out a recognition to the whole company. And the way that was received was just incredible. I mean, we had a couple thousand people like it and hundreds of people write comments back. And so just that really personal, a little bit silly way of reaching out to our whole company, our 35,000 people, and it just drove people to the platform, and it was really, really well received.
So thank you for sharing those. And, you know, within all this and, you know, turning it around, the role of the tool is to facilitate and inspire and enable these activities to take place. It's never about the tool. It's about working at Qualcomm and how the Qualcomm CEO is cool and we can connect to him. You know, I mean, our president uses these kinds of tools to communicate with the population and create, you know, a view, whatever your views of that happens to be. This is the world that we live in, right? And to some of the earlier experiences, and I know it's experiences with some of the folks that are on this call, leadership need to get out of the way. How you decide to do that is somewhat of a question. Now, I made a comment to Christi early on in the process when we first met, and you know, I thank you for the opportunity and everything that we've done together, everything we will do. But I made an interesting comment to you. I said, mark my words, you'll have some visibility on this thing, right? How would you describe that to other people who are in your shoes, but in a world where we've got something, they think it's great, but really it's craptacular and it's old and stuff, you know? How would you describe your experience within the organization to inspire others to go, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but should they do this and go for it, you know, and make a name for themselves?
I mean, I would say it has been a long journey, and it's been a very there's been a lot of tactical pieces, but at some point it gained its own momentum, right? At some point we had a couple of those key leaders on board. At some point when we had just the right data that we could reflect back to the company, at some point when we finally got all of the players in the right places, and then it's just taken off. And now it's become part of the language. We use the word thank you as part of our nomenclature for recognitions. I mean, it really did take off, but there is a lot of upfront work at the beginning, and that's where you've got to have the right team in place, and you've got to have the right person on your HR team driving this. You've really got to believe in recognition. You've got to be able to tell the story. You've got to be fearless in talking to your leaders. And like you said, Michael, they need to get out of the way, but they also need to demonstrate this. And it's risky, right? Sometimes it feels risky to send a social media post, right? If in your work context. So getting past that and try it, you'll like it. That's been a part of our change management strategy, and so far it's worked really well.
I might mention that along the way, Christi got promoted as well. So it was positive visibility, and she was the person that went to the executive team that her manager said, well, you've got the energy, you take it up. And so I think initially there was some snickers. I think you remember you telling me, Christi, but those stopped as they took a more serious look at the topic.
Yeah, they would say people need to be recognized once a week. That's crazy, right? Or they want animated things. That's crazy. So you just have to put on your pit helmet and keep moving forward. So.
Right, and again for the audience and not self-serving, I'm just reflecting the observations. I've got a 13, 11, and a 10-year-old, right? And you all have, many of you have, versions of that. That's the TikTok generation. If we thought Facebook was pretty consequential, these guys will be demanding the memes. This is how they're communicating, 10, 15-second blogs. But that's going to manifest in the workforce. This will be a training tip. This will be a cool way. This will be how to fix this. This will be, anyone notice meetings getting shorter with the digital stuff that we're doing? So there's a lot of change that is being accelerated or will accelerate now anyway. So, back to the question. So the role of the technology, I think I've been talking a little bit about, that, but, just as a bit of self-promotion for a moment, is just to say, it should look like the way you want it to look to create the experiences for your employees that make them feel pride in their personal job and pride in their work, and it's easy to do. And if it is not that and you have something else, then at some point at least ask the question, are there other things? Can we do it? We're not the only people that do this, there are other people. But it is such an important strategy and highlighted in this sort of economic period, and this economic period we're going to go into, because the growth will continue, that it becomes something that if you're interested in return on investment from the company, this produces a significant ROI. It is desired, it is meaningful, it is systematic, and it helps create an environment where people want to work more. And at the end of the day, that's what the compensation and benefits strategies are really actually designed to do. Right? And it's not that they don't do that, they have a role to play. But to take it to the next level.
Might also mention that constantly, Christi, we've been looking at the data, and it was an interesting observation when an employee gets on the platform 4 times, on the 4th time they get on the platform, it changes their perception of the culture, double digits. It moves on the needle that they feel it's more of a culture of recognition at the point where they've gotten on the platform 4 times, which they need to get onto if they've been recognized to see the recognition they've gotten. So I thought that was incredibly significant, that it was like a 12% jump in their perception of being in the culture of recognition.
Even if they're not using it, right? Even if they're just checking it out, I think, we've just seen earlier, but seeing all of the other recognitions, right? Good work begets good work. And I think, especially during this time of COVID and this time of unrest, to have this platform that's all good news, right? Great work. We pulled together, working from home. You've done such a great job. You delivered over the weekend. I mean, it's been really powerful to have just one positive feed of all of the good things that everyone's working on around the world, wherever they are in this current world order, but it's been really inspiring, and I think that inspiration is part of the pride piece too, that they just feel inspired to be part of this larger ecosystem that's doing good. And I think right now, especially, feeling that connection to the company has been really important.
Because without it, we know that in working virtually, one of the downsides is people feel much more isolated and more lonely. We're social animals, so this brings the whole social structure to them wherever they're sitting, which is kind of cool.
All right. One sort of final question, and then we'll open it up to the audience if they had any questions they wanted to ask Bob, Christi, and I. One, where did the program, sort of two levels of questions. Where did the program reside in the Qualcomm situation prior to us becoming involved? Who owned it? Where did it exist? Who cared about it? Who was nurturing it? Where is it now? And then conversely, Bob, you can share it with a broader perspective than just the Qualcomm. And then the second part of the question is, where do you see it should fit within a overall total reward strategy, of which we have total reward strategy, within every organization? Should it be part of that? And if so, sort of, why, or comments or otherwise? Yeah, Christi, maybe you want to start with that first.
Sure. On the Qualcomm side, it lived off on the side. I think it was sort of a thing that we did, especially when we had the old tool. It was just something that we had. Not a lot of people accessed it.
Out of communications.
Yeah, and it's in the communications under HR. It lives in HR, but it was not connected to all of the other touch points within HR, whether that's the annual review process or the talent development team or the business partners in HR or the local folks on the ground in India or China. We hadn't, it was not integrated. And so I came from the sort of work-life balance programmatic side of being close to the employees and what they need. And so coming from that lens and building it into all of our employees, trying to bring it closer to the center. So we have definitely moved recognition from the outskirts as a nice to have or as a soft skill to a core fundamental piece of data-driven, business driving
strategic
necessity and strategic for the team. And it's changed the way, it's changed our language. It's changed it's changing how we do business in terms of remembering to thank people and building that into the fiber. So I think it's really easy to have these tools or this this practice not being core to the strategy, but we are moving to align so that we're part of the total reward strategy, and we have a much bigger piece of real estate in that role.
And I think the more it ties directly to the mission and strategic objectives on a yearly basis and department objectives, the more natural it'll become, because it's part of how we get things done here. It's not an afterthought. Oh, by the way, we have a holiday party coming up. It's more tied to the work and the purpose of the organization to begin with. So it drives all that. And on the total rewards strategy, I think it's not news to anyone to say that most total rewards programs focus mainly on the tangibles, compensation and benefits and retirement plans and things like that. And so this is continues to be the hidden secret, the intangibles that drive a huge portion of the total rewards strategy, and actually can leverage your costs, because a lot of this, now there's a cost in the software platform, and if there's gift cards or points or whatnot, there's a cost there as well. But the fundamental behavior we're driving is a no cost thing. And so I constantly remind people that, yeah, it's great to send someone a gift, but you can just say something in the hallway or at the beginning of the staff meeting, and when you call out something that we did well together, maybe ask, does anyone else have any praisings, and just have that be part of your routines in all things at work. And the more you can do that, the better it's going to be. It's going to be this fit to the total things that we're trying to achieve through the human element of all workers.
I would also add that we're starting to measure different things in the high-tech world. We're starting to measure how people feel in terms of their purpose at work, how people feel in terms how much empathy they're showing at work, how their problem solving is. So as we move into an environment where we're starting to build in coaching and health and fitness, and it's much more integrative, these more intangible things become much more upfront, like pride and purpose and connection, right? I think that's where the whole industry is moving.
All right, so again, the chat box is an opportunity if you did want to ask any questions. Feel free to do so. I'll make a sort of closing observation, Mark, but we have a few more minutes, and I don't know if Bob and Christi are available a little longer, but we'll keep it open if there are some questions. So again, a couple of observations. One is there are a lot of programs in companies as well. So it's not just recognition as a standalone. Come into a company situation many times and there are, half a dozen programs from the formal to informal, and they've got too many programs. Nobody knows where they are. None of them is the champion sort of primary destination point where this is where the good things are happening, right? You've still got other necessities and your comp and your payroll systems and your benefit systems and your time off systems. You have to have those. You've all got nice HR, IS systems. Christi, yours is your HRIS system. Workday.
Yeah, we're just transitioning to Workday. We're home built, but we're just going to Workday in July.
And I'll just finish the point. I'll finish the point, and then I'll let you go. You got to bring those things together and bring them together with a view and a lens that says, do these various programs that relate to each other complement each other in creating employee experiences that make people proud of the work they do on a daily basis and proud of the company. Too many different programs is already, that's, and we know you've got them all. You've got a wellness program over here. You've got a user service program there. You've got a spot award program there. You thank, the little Yammer thing over there. I'm like, no, that's not helping employees at all. People don't spend their day in their social media worlds going, let me get a Facebook for this, and then quick, I'm going to go to TikTok for that, and then let me just come over here to the Google thing for this, and then I'm going to quickly jump over there to the Microsoft. That's not happening. Right? That's not what people want. They want a unified place where the tools can all sort of fit together. Now, that's not so easy to do. You got to do it in steps. But at least establish in your mind a lighthouse vision that says these programs need to come together to tell a story, to tell a D&I story, to tell a well-being story, to tell an appreciation story, to tell a performance and productivity story, to tell a milestone and anniversary story that the employee can absorb and understand and go, and I feel good. I'm proud of my work that I do here, whether I be the janitor at Qualcomm, F&B, senior engineer, finance department, or marketing. They should all feel proud of the individual works they do, and then they should feel proud of working at Qualcomm. You want to, ask yourself the questions of, are we doing programs that are creating that experience? Anyway, Bob, you had a closing point.
Just to build on that, in my experience, most companies have, it's even more fragmented than you indicated. So it's not just we have this for wellness and we have this for career development, but every department's doing something different, and the different facilities are doing something different, and they have their own programs that they're doing, and someone's doing a gift card, and over here they're doing field trips or celebrations, and so it's very segmented. And so part of having a total strategy is to bring those all under one umbrella to say, this is our philosophy, and this is how these different elements fit into this. And that's part of the power of having a platform, is that you can better unify all that happening under the same umbrella. And then still allowing a flexibility where people can have variances in different parts of the organization.
I would just build on that and say it's sort of been like a field of dreams. Build it and they will come, right? So we've built this platform, and now the exciting part is people are coming to us and saying, hey, here's what we'd like to do. Can we do that? Yes, we could do that. Here's what we'd like to do. Can we try that? Yes, we can do that. Boy, sure, it would sure be great if we could do X, Y, and Z. Well, you know what? We can, and it's quick, and I can do that today for you. So that's been the most exciting part, is to be able to be responsive to the needs of the business with something that we've already built. And we had to build it, you know, for a while it was a little lonely, and we built up speed and momentum. But now that we have it, we really can be responsive to what teams in India need, or a certain VP needs during his or her all hands meeting, or someone wants to do something special for a small group. We've got that covered. So that's been great.
I'll just build on that, Christi, because I thought it was amazing that in your work, and after we have the program set up, that any vice president can add finances and elements for their people for different projects they're trying to do. And I don't think any VP that's been approached to do that has said no yet, because once they see what it's for and what it's going to drive in the business, they're in a hurry to get on board. So it's been very affirming that it's getting more and more robust and more central to the overall organization.
Yeah, that's been a really exciting part, is talking to our leaders and them saying, how can I do more? And being able to have an answer to that question.
You know, thank you very much, Christi and Bob, for sharing that with the team. For the folks in the offices and at homes, thanks very much for your time today. Appreciate it. Jim from Online Rewards will send a follow-up email with information and instructions for getting a copy of Bob's recent book. And if there are any questions that we didn't get to, we'll try and answer in response, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time today, and particularly to Bob and Christi, you know, much appreciation for all the great things you shared and the opportunity to work together. So, all right, all the best to all of you and your families at home.